Claude responded, "The first time I ever drove my father to the hospital. I was 16 and terrified. The first time I ever drove my father to the hospital. I was 16 and terrified. The last time I drove him, I was 61 and calm." Somewhere in those 45 years, fear turns into duty, and duty, if you let it, turns into love. That's not something anyone teaches you. That's something you just find out. My father, Harold Jennings, never asked anybody for anything twice. He asked once, and if the answer was no, he simply found another way. He was a bridge inspector for the state of Ohio for 31 years, retired with a pension and a bad knee, and he never once called me to complain about either. When my mother died 8 years ago, he didn't fall apart. He learned to cook for one, kept her rose bushes alive out of stubbornness, and started calling me every Sunday at exactly 6 p.m., not because he needed to, but because, as he put it, a man should hear his son's voice at least once a week, or he starts talking to the television. So when Harold Jennings called me on a Tuesday morning at 6:50 a.m., 40 minutes before his usual time, I already knew something was wrong before he said a word. "Welcome back, family. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, because this one's going to sit with you a while." Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe. You're going to want to be here for what happens next. My name is Daniel Jennings. I'm 61 years old. I spent 30 years as a high school shop teacher before I retired, and for most of my adult life, I believed that a quiet house was a happy house. I believed that if I just kept things smooth, kept things easy, never made waves, that counted as a good marriage. I was wrong about that. It took me a long time to understand exactly how wrong. It was March 3rd, a Tuesday, 6:50 in the morning. I remember because I was in the garage checking the oil in my truck when my phone rang against the workbench. "Dad, Danny." His voice was tight, careful, the voice of a man trying not to alarm anyone. "Don't panic, but I think something's wrong with my hip. I got up to use the bathroom, and I went down. I can't get myself back up. Dad, are you hurt anywhere else? Is anything broken?" "I don't know, son. It hurts something fierce. I've been laying here on this floor for about 10 minutes trying to figure out how bad it is. I'm coming right now." "Don't move." "I wasn't planning on it," he said. And even in pain, even on the floor of his own bathroom at 78 years old, the man still had a sense of humor. That was Harold Jennings. That was always him. I hung up and stood there in the garage for exactly 2 seconds, running through it. My truck was sitting right there, but it had a flat that I hadn't gotten around to fixing, spare tire on, not safe for a real drive across town. My wife, Carol's car, a white Toyota Camry, sat in the driveway, fueled up, keys hanging on the hook by the kitchen door where they always hung. Carol was upstairs. I could hear the hairdryer running. I went to the bottom of the stairs. "Carol." The hairdryer kept going. "Carol." It shut off. A pause. Then her voice, flat, already annoyed before she even knew why I was calling her. "What?" Not concern. Not what's wrong. Just what, like I'd interrupted something sacred. "I need to borrow your car. Dad fell in his bathroom. He can't get up. I need to get to his house right now." Silence. Not the silence of someone processing. The silence of someone already deciding how to say no. She came to the top of the stairs, robe cinched tight. One half of her hair still curled from the dryer, the other half flat. Her face was unreadable in a way I'd grown far too used to over the last few years. "Daniel, I have my hair appointment at 8:30. Deborah's fitting me in special before her other clients." "Carol, my father is on the floor of his bathroom. He might have broken his hip. Call 911. That's what ambulances are for." "He doesn't want an ambulance. You know how he is about hospitals since Mom. He gets worked up. I can get him there faster and calmer if I just go." She crossed her arms, leaned against the doorframe the way she always did when a conversation was already over in her mind. "I rescheduled that appointment twice already, Daniel. I'm not doing it a third time over something that's probably just a bruise. He's 78 years old and he can't stand up off his own bathroom floor. Then figure it out." She said it so plainly, so without weight, like she was telling me we were out of coffee filters. "I'm sure your brother can help, or one of the neighbors. I have an appointment." She turned and walked back into the bathroom, The door didn't slam. It clicked shut, soft and final, and somehow that was so much worse than if she'd screamed at me. A slam would have meant she felt something. This just meant I was an inconvenience standing between her and a hair appointment. I stood at the bottom of those stairs for one more second, and something in me went very quiet and very still. Then I called the one person I knew would never ask me twice what I needed. Ray Okafor lived 2 doors down. A retired Marine, 69 years old, drove a beat-up green Ford Ranger that ran better than trucks half its age, because Ray took care of things the way he took care of people thoroughly, without complaint. He and my father had known each other for almost 15 years, played chess on Sunday afternoons on my dad's back porch, argued about football teams that didn't deserve the loyalty either man gave them. He picked up on the first ring. "Danny, Ray, I need help. Dad's fallen, can't get up, might be his hip. My truck's got a bad tire, and Carol's not available." There was no pause, no hesitation. "I'm already grabbing my keys. Meet you at his place in 5 minutes." That was it. No conditions, no hair appointment to protect. I called my father back immediately. "Dad, I'm coming. Ray's meeting me there. Don't try to move, just stay put, okay? I'm not going anywhere, Danny. Believe me, I mean it. Stay still." A weak laugh came through the phone, strained with pain but real. "Yes, sir." Ray was already backing out of his driveway when I pulled up 2 minutes later. We drove the 11 minutes to my father's house on Larchwood Avenue, mostly in silence, Ray's hands steady on the wheel, an old classic rock station humming low. There's a kind of friendship that doesn't need filling with words, and Ray and I had built that kind over the years without ever really talking about it. We found my father exactly where he said he'd be, propped against the bathroom wall, pale, sweat on his forehead, his right leg turned out at an angle that made my stomach drop. Ray took one look and said, "That's a hip, Danny. We need paramedics, not a car ride. This one's past what we can manage on our own." I called it in. The ambulance arrived in 11 minutes. My father gripped my hand the whole time they worked around him, and when the paramedic asked him to rate his pain, he said, "About an 8. But don't let that stop you from telling me a joke, because 8 is more bearable with a laugh in it." The paramedic laughed despite himself. That was my father. Even on his worst morning, he made room for someone else's comfort. I rode in the ambulance. Ray followed behind in his truck and told me later he sat in the hospital parking lot the entire time, just in case you needed something and didn't want to ask twice. We got to Mercy General at 7:40 a.m. A nurse named Patricia, gray-haired, no wasted movements, had him in a room within 20 minutes. The doctor on call, a younger man named Dr. Whitfield, ordered x-rays right away. "Mr. Jennings, I want to be straight with you. This looks like a fractured hip. We're going to need to admit you, likely surgery within the next day or two." My father looked at me the way he used to look at me when I was small, and something scary was happening in the world, checking to see if I was scared so he'd know how scared to be. "Whatever the doctor says, Dad, we'll handle it." He nodded, settled back against the pillow, and reached up to pat my hand. "You came fast, Danny." 2 words. You came. Like there had ever been a version of this morning where I wouldn't have. "I'll always come, Dad." He closed his eyes, and for the first time since the phone rang, I let myself breathe. I sat in that waiting room for 3 hours while they prepped him for surgery. Vending machine coffee that tasted like scorched cardboard, a muted television playing a rerun of some game show nobody in the room was watching, the particular gray light of a hospital hallway that makes every hour feel the same length. Ray sat with me for the first hour before I told him to go home and rest, that I'd call if I needed anything. He left, but only after making me promise twice. Carol never called, not once. Not, "How is he?" Not, "Let me know." Nothing. At 11:15, Dr. Whitfield came out, mask pulled down, expression calm but serious. "Surgery went well. We repaired the fracture with a plate and some screws. He's going to need real rehabilitation, but at his age, with his overall health, I expect a strong recovery." "Can I see him?" "Give recovery another hour, then absolutely." I sat back down, elbows on my knees, and thought about the sound of that bathroom door clicking shut. "Figure it out," she'd said. Figure it out, while she sat in a salon chair, getting foils put in her hair, while my father lay on cold tile with a broken hip. I figured it out, all right. I stayed with my father until 6 that evening. We watched an old Western on the little television bolted to the wall, and he beat me at a trivia game he invented on the spot using nothing but hospital equipment and state capitals, same as he always did, sharp as a tack, even doped up on pain medication. Around 5:30, his voice shifted. That careful, pained morning voice was gone, replaced by something steadier, something with intention behind it. Danny. Yeah, Dad. Carol didn't come. It wasn't a question, so I didn't treat it like one. She had her hair appointment. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Just looked toward the window, where the Ohio evening light was turning the parking lot gold and tired. I see, he finally said. Nothing more. But I watched something pass over his face, something that looked a great deal like a decision quietly being made and quietly being kept. I kissed his forehead at 6:15 and left him resting. Ray drove me home. We didn't talk much on the way, but somewhere on Route 9, watching the last of the winter fields blur past the window, I realized I wasn't furious at Carol anymore. I was finished. If you've been with us a while, do me one favor real quick. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Costs you nothing, means a great deal to us. And drop a comment letting me know what you'd have done in my shoes. Some people spend a whole marriage withdrawing from an account they never once deposited into. Carol had been overdrawn for longer than I wanted to admit to myself. Wednesday morning, 6:40 a.m., I woke up before the alarm, the way you do when something heavy is sitting on your chest and sleep just can't hold it down anymore. Carol was still asleep beside me, breathing slow and even, completely undisturbed by any of it, like the whole previous day had happened to somebody else's husband. I got up quiet, went down, made coffee with the machine that grinds loud enough to wake the dead, and for once in 18 years of marriage, I didn't feel 1 ounce of guilt about it. She'd chosen foils over my father's broken hip. She could survive a little noise. I was on my second cup when I heard her on the stairs. She came into the kitchen in her robe, saw the coffee, saw me, and there was a pause. The specific kind married people know. The kind waiting for someone to bring something up. She finally did. How's Harold? Harold. Not Dad. Not your dad. Harold. Like he was an acquaintance from her book club she was only vaguely tracking. Surgery went fine. Plate and screws in his hip. He's got a long recovery ahead. That's good, she said, like she was commenting on the weather. Another pause. Look, Daniel, yesterday was really difficult timing for me. Difficult timing. I let those 2 words sit in the kitchen air a moment. Your father-in-law was on the floor of his bathroom with a broken hip, Carol. But sure, difficult timing. I'm just trying to explain. I heard you the first time, I said. Yesterday, at the top of the stairs. I rinsed my mug, picked up my keys, and walked toward the door. Where are you going? To see my father. I didn't look back. Ray drove me again, no questions, just the radio low and his hand steady on the wheel. We got to Mercy General around 9. My father was sitting up in bed, color coming back into his face, a crossword puzzle book propped on his lap, reading glasses low on his nose. 6 letters, he said the second I walked in, not even looking up. Word for someone who lets you down. I stopped in the doorway. Dad. He peered over his glasses, completely straight-faced. It's for the puzzle, Danny. I laughed so hard the nurse checked in on us. We sat together easy for a while, the kind of quiet that only exists between people who've loved each other long enough not to need to fill it. Then he set the puzzle book down, folded his hands, and looked at me with a clarity that told me something important was coming. I want to call Warren this morning. Warren Pierce. My father's attorney of almost 20 years, the man who'd handled my mother's estate when she passed. Sharp, careful, a man who listened more than he talked. Dad, you don't have to. Daniel Harold Jennings. Full name. I hadn't heard all 3 since I was 17 and missed curfew by an hour. Don't finish that sentence. I closed my mouth. I've worked my whole life, he said quietly. Your mother and I built what we built one careful year at a time, and it's going to go somewhere that matters. To people who show up. He didn't say Carol's name. He didn't have to. Not just yesterday, he continued. Not at your mother's funeral luncheon. When she left early for a spa day. Not when I had my knee replaced and needed rides to physical therapy for 6 weeks and she came exactly 0 times. And not yesterday, when I was laying on a bathroom floor. Every example landed like a stone dropped into still water. I'm not angry, he said, and the remarkable thing was, he wasn't. His voice was steady as a hand on a Bible. I'm just accurate. He dialed Warren Pierce at 9:40 a. Told him he needed to update his will, today if possible. Warren said he could be there by 2. My son will be here, my father said, glancing at me. The meeting lasted just under an hour. I sat in the corner, quiet, a witness. I won't repeat every word. Some things deserve their privacy, but I will tell you that by the time Warren Pierce clicked his pen shut, the house on Larchwood Avenue, the modest investment accounts my parents had built dollar by careful dollar over 4 decades, my mother's wedding ring, my father's 1,971 Pontiac GTO that still ran like a dream under a tarp in the garage. The car he and my mother drove on their first date, every bit of it had been fundamentally, legally rewritten. Carol's name appeared nowhere. Not once. He also set aside $8,000 for the Larchwood Senior Center, where he'd volunteered teaching woodworking to other retirees every Thursday for 6 years, because that was who Harold Jennings was. When Warren stood to leave, he shook my hand at the door. Your father, he said, glancing back at him, already returned to his crossword, is one of the sharpest men I've dealt with in 22 years of practice. I know, I said. I've always known. Thursday morning, 8:10 a.m. I was at Riley's garage getting my tire finally patched when the calls started. My phone buzzed. Carol. I let it ring, not strategy. I just didn't have anything worth saying yet. It buzzed again. Then a third time. A fourth. A fifth. Something's happening, I thought, and I felt something settle in my chest that wasn't quite satisfaction, but wasn't far from it either. I drove to Mercy General to bring my father home. He was ready and waiting, dressed, a small bag packed, refusing the wheelchair on principle the moment we cleared the automatic doors. I broke a hip, not my legs, he announced to the lobby at large. The nurse, Patricia, laughed the real kind of laugh, not the professional one, and squeezed his hand before we left. You take care, Mr. Jennings. Always do, he said. You're a good one. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. In the truck, his phone sat face up in the cup holder, buzzing every 30 seconds. Carol, Carol, Carol. He glanced at it, said nothing, and looked out the window with the faint, peaceful smile of a man who'd made his decision and had absolutely no regrets about it. I got him settled at Larchwood Avenue, made him tea the specific way he liked it, went through his new medications one at a time, checked the thermostat, checked the fridge. He watched me from the kitchen table where he'd built every birthday cake candle blow and every homework session of my childhood. Sit down, Danny, he said. I sat. He put both hands over mine. What I did with the will, I didn't do it to punish Carol. I know, Dad. I did it because your mother and I built something meant for people who understand what building something together actually costs. He squeezed my hand once. And Daniel, I need you to think hard about your own life. Not the money, about whether you're happy, whether you're loved. The way a man who shows up for people deserves to be loved. My throat went tight. I know, Dad. He nodded slowly, patted my hand twice, the same way he'd patted it in that hospital bed. Good. Now, are you going to answer that phone or not? I looked at it buzzing on the table. Call 29. Not yet, I said. The corner of his mouth moved. Not yet, he repeated quietly, like he was tasting the patience in it himself. I drove home to Ridgeline Drive at 1:30 that afternoon, parked behind Carol's Camry, and sat in the truck a full minute. 41 missed calls. 41. She was in the living room when I walked in, perched on the edge of the couch, both hands wrapped around her phone like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Her eyes were red, sleepless, and something in her had cracked wide open that I'd never seen before. Daniel. I've been calling all day. I know. I set my keys on the hook and thought about the sound of that bathroom door clicking shut, about my father on cold tile with a broken hip while she sat in a salon chair. Did you know? Her voice cracked. About the will? Did you know he was going to do this? No, I found out with everyone else. She pressed her fingers to her mouth, tried to compose herself. When she spoke again, it was quieter, but underneath it was real fear, the kind that shows up when consequences finally catch up to a person. Warren's office called to confirm the changes were filed. Daniel, do you understand what that means? Everything we assumed. I understand exactly what it means. Then talk to him. Tell him it was a misunderstanding, that I would have come. You had a hair appointment, I said, while my father lay on his bathroom floor with a broken hip, while I sat in a waiting room drinking coffee that tasted like regret, while Ray Okafor sat in that parking lot for 3 hours because that's simply what people do for each other. The color drained out of her face slowly, like water leaving a glass. My father made his decision the same way you made yours, clearly, deliberately, without asking anyone's permission. Daniel, please, he's spent his whole life showing up for people. For my mother, for me, for every person he's ever loved. He never once, not one time, chose a hair appointment over somebody who needed him. He just finally stopped expecting the rest of the world to do the same. She looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in years, and I watched something move across her face that was deeper than fear. The look of someone finally understanding the full size of what she'd lost. Not the money. Not the house on Larchwood. Me? Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down. My father's name lit up the screen. She looked up at me, eyes wide with something that might have been hope. I felt the last thread of 18 years finally go slack, not with anger, with something quieter. Release. I picked my keys back up off the hook. I'm going to go check on my father, I said. I opened the door. The March air hit me clean and cold and honest. I turned back one final time. Carol stood in the middle of that living room, phone glowing in her hand, 42 calls worth of consequence written across her face. You should probably answer that, I said. I closed the door behind me and exhaled, the kind of exhale that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't even know you'd been holding it. I stood on that porch a long moment, and something settled over me I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not bitterness, just clarity. The plain, unmistakable clarity of a man who'd spent 18 years calling a quiet house a happy one and had finally seen it exactly as it was. I hadn't been married for 18 years. I had been enduring for 18 years. There's a difference. And it took a broken hip and a bathroom door, clicking softly shut, to show me exactly where that line had always been. I drove back to my father's house that evening and didn't go home that night. And somewhere in the quiet of Larchwood Avenue, sitting across from a man who'd shown up his whole life without ever once being asked twice, I understood it wasn't just that one night. It was every night, from here on out. Family isn't the people who share your name. It's the people who show up when the floor is cold and the hour is early, and nobody's watching to see if you will. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Claude responded. Showing up isn't a grand gesture. It's just choosing someone over your own convenience when it counts. Showing up isn't a grand gesture. It's just choosing someone over your own convenience when it counts. A cold bathroom floor, a missed hair appointment, a phone left ringing. Small moments like these quietly tell the truth about who we are. Love isn't proven in easy seasons. It's proven at 6:50 in the morning. Whoever shows up for you today, hold on to them tightly. A small note for you. This story was written and fictionalized by AI purely for entertainment, though we hope its little life lessons still landed somewhere warm in your heart.